Δεύτερη ενότητα, πώς αξιοποιούμε τις προηγμένες τηλεπικοινωνιακές υποδομές. Και θα κάνω αλλαγή στα αγγλικά τώρα, γιατί our next speaker, we will talk in English. Okay. And it's, I'm very honored to have with us Laszlo Toth. I'm trying to say the name correctly. Okay, who is the head of Europe and CIS at the GSMA. Laszlo, you can come. We're going to have a fireside chat with Laszlo. And we're going to talk a lot about GSMA. For those that you don't know that, I'm not sure that there are too many people, is the GSM Association. So it's all the mobile operators of the world, the association of the mobile operators. But mainly it's the telecom operators now, right?
That's correct.
Let me see if it's open. Now I think we're better.
So, Dimitris, that's correct. The GSMA is a global organization representing mobile network operators. Indeed, we also very active in Europe. I'm based in Brussels, and I'm very happy to be here. Thanks a lot for the invitation.
I think it can be, fruitful also for you. Everybody's here, I think.
I already had a good discussion. I'm very happy to be here because there are a lot of things happening in Greece. Greece is one of the more advanced countries in digital. I mean, we know in Europe the situation is very heterogeneous. So I'm sure we will talk about it, but I'm very happy to be here.
Okay, let's start from that. The heterogeneous that you said. Okay, can you give us an update of how do you see as the GSMA the situation of Europe versus North America versus Asia Pacific? Because there's a lot of talk about that.
Yeah, looking back once, Europe was an undisputed leader in mobile technology, demonstrated the transformative power of mobile, not just a communication tool, but a pillar of modern societies and economies, but it is no longer the case since the 3G era. Europe has fallen behind in 5G development to many of the global peers, such as the US, the developed Asian countries, the Gulf states. If you look at the Commission's State of the Digital Decade 2025 report, we see that Europe is lagging behind. The most important indicator, the 5G standalone. 2% of European 5G users are connected via 5G standalone networks. Similar numbers are 77% in China and 24% in the US. If you look at the investment numbers, CapEx per connection is around $100 in the US. The similar number in Europe is $35. The European operators are spending proportionately bigger amount of the revenue to investment, but this is not enough to offset the difference, and we should not be surprised if we are investing less, we will have a less developed infrastructure. Why does it matter? If we are falling behind in advanced digital infrastructure, we are also risk falling behind in all other sectors of the economy, especially those which are very important for future growth, like smart manufacturing, healthcare, AI, quantum computing. If I look at the numbers, only 6% of the total funding goes to AI startups to Europe. The similar number in the US is 61%, in China 17%. If I look at cloud computing, 5%.
So we're not investing enough.
We are not investing in these future technologies because if 5G standalone is not available, businesses will not develop products and services for that technology, which means that innovation is happening and scaling elsewhere and sold back to Europe. Europe has become a net technology importer from a pioneer, which is important when we think about our objective to achieve digital sovereignty for Europe.
So, why is happening that? Why do you believe that we don't invest as Europe enough? What's the reasons behind that?
We are lagging behind because we are over-regulating and under-investing. Telecom networks require massive investment in spectrum, networks, and resilience. Simply, the return on equity is too low in Europe. European operators had to cut back investment, divest certain assets. Many of the European operators had to withdraw from certain member states due to unsustainable market conditions. We basically agree with the high-level reports by Enrico Letta and Mario Draghi that the lack of integration of telecoms next to financing and energy is the primary reason for Europe's declining competitiveness. Simply, we are too fragmented. When it comes to the market structure, we had 100+ operators in Europe. We do not have true scale operators. And if you look at the regulation, we have horizontal and sector-specific overlapping rules at the European level. And on top of that, we have a lot of national rules.
So what should we do as Europe to take up back the leading role in mobile networks, at least be in the conversation, because we're not in the conversation at this point.
Indeed, I think there are two things are particularly needed. One, we need political leadership and political will. We need to put digital infrastructure front and center of Europe's future. If we take an honest look at Europe, we see too much complacency. The assumption appears to be that without radical change, without reforms, without effort, somehow, miraculously, investments will continue to be made in next generation networks. And secondly, we need to act more quickly. So we celebrated just recently the 1-year anniversary of this Draghi report in Brussels. The Commission published a white paper more than a year ago. There has been a lot of studies and public consultations which we all responded. I think we sat down in Barcelona to have a discussion, and I labeled the last year as the year of studies, and I expected that 25 be the year of action.
But so far we haven't.
That's not happening. So if we look around the globe, other regions are moving in a more faster, speedier way, and we also need to move a little bit faster. We have two main upcoming reforms at site. One is the Digital Networks Act, the other is the review of the merger control guidelines. We understand that the completion of all these review procedures are expected by 2027.
2027? That's
yes.
Too late, right?
Yes. So,
according to what you were saying before. So, what should we expect with it? You've seen there's some reports, and there's the white paper about Digital Networks Act. Okay, you said there are two things: this one and the mergers. Let's start with the Digital Networks Act. What's your opinion about that? What should we do from what we've seen, your talks, because you are in talks with the EU, I'm sure absolutely. About that.
Yeah, so we think that the Digital Networks Act is a once-in-a-generation opportunity to really reform and change the EU telecom regulation. Policymakers should be ambitious, and the proposal should bring radical change rather than to continue to make slow and piecemeal evolutions to outdated rules. The evolution of the regime should reduce three things. One is fragmentation, the other one is complexity, and the third one is imbalance. In other words, we need less rules, which are more harmonized across Europe, and which also apply the same service, same rules principle. There was a recent study which showed that the consumer journey is impacted by 34 distinct regulatory obligations stemming from 9 sector-specific and 19 horizontal rules. We need a significant simplification effort in order to reduce the compliance cost, in order to allow innovation in European networks. We need to reduce reporting obligations significantly, which is also promised by the Commission. And secondly, we need to complete the digital single market. Service providers in one country should be able to effectively deploy networks and provide services on a cross-border basis. Because if we don't do that, mobile operators in Europe cannot take advantage of the digital single market. And thirdly, the same service, same rules principle should be applied by eliminating outdated, duplicative, obsolete rules. We already moved towards a level playing field. But all the rest, the preference is to move to a horizontal framework, which should apply across the ecosystem, thereby making sure that there are no distortions in competition with services provided by telecom operators and over-the-top providers.
But talking about that, you mean that to create a European digital single market, which is something we've been talking about for 30 years, if I'm not mistaken. Does that mean that it should be more easier to merge companies, to have less players perhaps in a market, at least in the mobile networks sector? Is that your opinion? Also talking about, you said before that there's a merger review. Yeah. So what's your opinion about that? Or should we have more competition with more players coming in?
Yeah, so without scale, it's really difficult to deliver competitive returns. Simply, operators need scale to deliver much more effective networks and decrease unitary costs. Simply, we need more customers on the same network in order to allow economies of scale and scope and enable cost reduction and innovation. If you look at other regions, there are genuine scale operators in the US, in China, in India. The European landscape is characterized by a patchwork of 3 to 4 smaller operators in various member states, and we do not have true scale European operators. We do think that some sort of consolidation in the sector is really needed if we want to catch up in the digital race. We shouldn't exclude cross-border mergers or in-country consolidation. It's not an either-or. There are indeed some hope that there will be some policy changes. We expect that the modernized merger framework will move towards a more forward-looking and flexible approach, which will take into account and give due weight to other factors beyond consumer pricing, such as innovation, investment, competitiveness, security, and we'll take a more open-minded view when it comes to non-divestment remedies. The recent example in the UK, how competition authorities evaluated the merger of Vodafone and Hutchison gives a good example how these additional factors are taken into account and prioritized. Secondly, with the DNA, if we complete the digital single market, this will also allow operators to take advantage of the single market scale. It's balanced. And thirdly, there's also important that governments stop artificially injecting players into the market by using preferential treatment or set-asides, because this works contrary and just further fragment the situation.
So you say that the government should leave the market to define how many players will be sufficient for its market, right? More or less, that's what you're saying.
We should allow market-driven consolidation in Europe.
Okay, what are some other challenges? We were talking on the phone the other day, and we were talking about 6G and the spectrum allocation. Is that also a challenge that we should, something that we have to look forward about that?
Absolutely. Spectrum is very important for mobile communications. Obviously, there are two main buckets or two main issues. One is spectrum supply, and the other one is spectrum pricing.
Yeah.
Well, spectrum plus supply is timely availability of harmonized spectrum in order to accommodate the growing traffic in the networks. And in that respect, Europe is about to disadvantage itself in the 6G race even before it started. There was an agreement at the WRC 23 that the lower part of the 6 gigahertz band would be used by the Wi-Fi community, and the upper part would be given to mobile. Asian markets in the Middle East are already identifying the upper part of the 6 gigahertz for mobile communications, placing the band in their roadmaps. Brazil is consulting the auction rules. China is moving to that direction. The United Arab Emirates already auctioned the band to mobile. And in Europe, there are diverging national views, and there's debate whether to use either the whole or parts of the upper 6 gigahertz band to Wi-Fi. Mobile operators many of them are also Wi-Fi operators, and the preference is to use the balance, which was agreed at WRC, and use the upper part for the mobile communications. So here, again, there is a risk that Europe will do some self-harm and not follow the international trends.
In any case, it's the same thing that you were saying before. Europe should act more quickly.
Yeah.
In all subjects. That's the main. Okay. What else? Is there any other challenges? Because I think we're too heavy, too many. Okay. With with a spectrum, with digital networks, the mergers, all this stuff. Is there any other challenges that you see in the European telecommunications market that we should be aware of?
I think that another recent challenge since the deterioration of global geopolitical relationships, a threat to critical infrastructures has vastly accelerated.
Okay.
So connectivity is also enable to modern defense, powering advanced military capabilities and dual use applications. So if governments are thinking about civil preparedness and national security, then Europe resilience also depends on secure and reliable networks. So if Europe wants to, and also, this element, this additional requirements, both in terms of resilience and security, thinking about also environmental resilience, such as making sure that batteries are supplied and other issues, as well as the security part of the equation. It also puts additional investment needs on European infrastructures. But these are the two main elements if Europe wants to increase its competitiveness and also want to strengthen its defense. Then again, Europe should prioritize the digital infrastructure and should change things and move more quickly. It is time to let go of the brakes. It is time to allow consolidation, promote investment, stimulate innovation. Europe largely missed out on the internet revolution of the 4G. If we want different results, probably we should do different things. We have a fairly good description of the problem. We have a list of actions which could change the course of the European digital markets. We call on the Commission, we call on the governments to implement the Draghi recommendations and do it in a quicker manner.
It's time to act. That's what you're saying.
Time to act.
Thanks very much for the conversation. Ένα χειροκρότημα παρακαλώ.